Yeah, the dream was my favorite because personal reasons. And the reason was he was a guy that I couldn't break.
We've heard the names and seen the legends, but there's one tale that often gets overshadowed in the halls of basketball greatness: Hakeem Olajuwon. What sets the dream apart is a claim that's very rare. He is arguably the only player in NBA history to secure a championship without another Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer by his side. Throughout his illustrious career, Olajuwon commanded respect, admiration, and yes, even fear from his adversaries. But what did the Titans of basketball truly think of this towering force? Welcome to the Olajuwon Chronicles.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
Throughout his illustrious career, Hakeem wasn't just a towering figure on the court, but a force to be reckoned with. Even Michael Jordan held Olajuwon in the highest regard. Robert Horry spilled the beans, revealing that MJ, the man himself, had a healthy dose of fear when facing the big African.
Ask Michael Jordan what one guy he ever feared. It was Hakeem Olajuwon. He used to call us, "I'm scared of the big African."
This guy wasn't just good, he was elite, a force on both ends of the floor. But here's the kicker. Imagine if Hakeem had a squad as stellar as his skills. We're not throwing shade, but let's be real. The man carried the Rockets on his back. And if circumstances had aligned differently, we could be talking about a guy with more than 2 rings. But it's not just about the stats. It's about the impact. His airness couldn't help but sing Olajuwon's praises. In MJ's own words, Olajuwon, he was in the top 10 in 5 categories: steals, rebounds, block shots, scoring, and shooting percentage. To have a big guy of his size to be in the top 10 in steals, you would assume that he would be in blocks, which to me showed versatility and what type of guy he really was. Meanwhile, while the world marveled at the dominance of Shaquille O'Neal, one man saw beyond brute force. Kenny Smith, a former teammate of Olajuwon and a witness to his basketball brilliance. In an episode of The Draymond Green Show, Smith couldn't help but sing Olajuwon's praises. He said, "I never seen anyone not be outpowered by Shaq, but Hakeem. And I don't know if it was because it's just footwork, his strength, or just his tenacity. It's like teams were fearful not only of him as a defender, but they were a little bit scared of his physicality. You know, and how he would treat you if you showed any type of weakness." Sure, Shaq was a beast in the paint, but Olajuwon? He was a nightmare on both ends of the floor. His footwork, his finesse, his ferocity, a lethal combination that struck fear into the hearts of his opponents. And talking about Shaq in one session, Shaq was put on the hot seat and asked about the player who gave him the toughest time in the NBA. Let's be honest, not many centers could handle the sheer force that was Shaquille O'Neal. But when the question arose, Shaq didn't hesitate. It was the dream Hakeem Olajuwon. Shaq revealed, "Hakeem Olajuwon. Most guys are tri-dimensional, 1 move, 2, maybe 3. Hakeem had 7 moves on each block, so he was hard to stop." And this isn't the only time Shaq has talked about Hakeem. He also paid tribute to Hakeem during his appearance with Willie Geist. When asked to list his all-time NBA starting 5, O'Neal didn't hesitate to include Olajuwon in the lineup. O'Neal said, "Kobe and Mike, that's the 1 and the 2. The 3, I gotta go with Bird. 4, I gotta go with Malone. And 5, I gotta go with Hakeem." O'Neal's selection of Olajuwon highlights the profound impact and respect he holds for the Rockets icon.
You know, all the other great centers, I was able to get into their heads a little bit. And that was just my way of trying to compete. You know, every young guy that comes up, you know, always put it in basic karate movie format. You know, you got the old guy in the white beard, which is me now. You got the old guy in the white beard.
Shaq Fu?
Yeah, Shaq Fu. But then you got the young guy that's coming up. So in order for you to be the master, you have to beat the master. So, I mean, I always knew these Patrick Ewing and Hakeem and Chief. I always knew these guys were 100 times better than me. But I didn't want them to know that. And then I wanted their spot. So, you know, I wanted their spot. So the 5 best singers, I'm glad I had to write them down. Hakeem to me is number 1.
But why couldn't you break him?
Because I couldn't get into his head. I remember one time I gave him a bow and he just laughed. nice elbow, brother. And then he came out and gave me a and shot a crazy fadeaway. Yeah, he gave me one of them. So the next time I came down, I dunked on him and I looked at him and like, okay, good one. And he just came out, you shoot. And he gave it to me again.
Despite his illustrious career, he acknowledges Hakeem's immense talent and impact on the game. Their memorable showdown during the 1995 NBA Finals left an indelible impression on Shaq. Olajuwon led the Rockets to a series sweep. He averaged staggering numbers of 32.8 points, 11.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 2 blocks per game. There was once a conversation between then Rockets coach Rudy Tomjanovic and Michael Jordan after Jordan's 1998 retirement. In this hypothetical discussion about a matchup between their teams, Jordan expressed doubt about the Bulls' ability to contain Hakeem. Tomjanovic shared Jordan's sentiments, stating, "Jordan gave our team great respect. He didn't feel that he could contain Hakeem. They just didn't have the personnel to do it, and he said he thought we were the team that gave them the most trouble." Jordan recognized his dominance in the paint. He admitted that the Bulls would have faced significant difficulties trying to contain Hakeem. Hakeem's impact on the Rockets during the 90s didn't go unnoticed. His teammate Robert Horry witnessed his greatness firsthand. He emphasized that Hakeem had unparalleled all-around abilities. These abilities set him apart from other legendary big men in the NBA's history. He said, "All-time shot blocker out of every big man that ever played the game. He can shoot free throws, he can shoot from the outside, he can guard guards. He's the best to me. You go back and look at the things he did on the court, ask David Robinson. He'll tell you."
Man just played, as well as I've seen anybody play in a long time.
Horry asserts that Hakeem was simply the best, that he deserves the highest praise and respect for his contributions to basketball. In a video paying tribute to Hakeem's induction into the NBA 75 team, Greg Anthony offered high praise for the legendary big man. Anthony acknowledged Hakeem's well-known greatness. He highlighted what he considers the most underrated aspect of Hakeem's on-court prowess. He said, "The Dream, man, was kind of a freak of nature. I'd never seen a human being that big with his footwork, his quickness, and his instincts. He had the best ball instincts of any big man I'd ever seen, and he also had incredible hands." Hakeem's versatility and multifaceted skill set him apart as one of the greatest centers in NBA history. They also laid the groundwork for a new era of basketball. In this era, traditional positions became fluid and interchangeable. In an interview, Steph Curry talked about 3 legends he'd love to share the court with. Steph said, "My top 3, obviously Jordan, Shaq, and I'd probably say Hakeem Olajuwon. I'd like to play with all 3 of those guys because I think Jordan, you just want to see it up close and personal. And I think the pick and roll with me and Hakeem or me and Shaq would be pretty much unstoppable." And when ESPN unveiled its top 75 players of all time, Hakeem Olajuwon found himself ranked 12th. But Paul Pierce wasn't having any of it. On ESPN's The Jump, Pierce passionately argued that Olajuwon's placement was far too low. Paul Pierce said, "He doesn't get enough credit. He's the only player in NBA history to win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP in the same year. Hakeem Olajuwon is the one player that stands out to me that is not in the top 10. You look at all these players who accomplished so much, no one has ever accomplished that feat." Hakeem's defensive prowess was so extraordinary that the NBA honored him by naming the Defensive Player of the Year award after him. As Kendrick Perkins weighed in on the discussion, it became evident that Olajuwon's impact went beyond his accolades. Paul Pierce's argument doesn't just center on statistics. It's about the profound influence Olajuwon had on the game, especially for international players. He was a pioneer for international players. Olajuwon became the first player born outside of the United States to win the MVP award. He paved the way for future stars like Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, and Joel Embiid to shine on basketball's grandest stage. In another interview, Gary Payton threw his hat into the ring. He declared Hakeem as the superior player compared to his former teammate, Shaquille O'Neal. Payton's reasoning is as intriguing as it is unexpected. In Payton's eyes, Shaq struggled against 2 specific players, Hakeem Olajuwon and Yao Ming. He said, "I think the Dream was way, way better, and Shaq had a lot of power. Dream was way better, that's my opinion. The Dream had a lot of shake and bake. He could fade away on you, he shot free throws, he did a lot more. Shaq was more of a dominant basketball player. I'm gonna give it to the Dream. Dream could run the floor really well, Shaq could run, but then he became a player that you put him on the block and we had to double team him because he was so strong. With the Dream, Shaq couldn't guard Dream. Shaq couldn't guard Yao Ming. The 2 players, he couldn't deal with them. He couldn't deal with Yao Ming because he couldn't move Yao Ming. He could go through Dream, but Dream would work him."
When we were watching that video coming into the segment, when they show that Dream shake against David Robinson, which is the one that, you guys, everybody's shaking their head and everybody goes, "Woo!" What do you, when you see a big man with those kind of moves and that fluid, what did you think?
I think about two things. I think one, the fact that he made that move because you thought he was going to do the jump hook. Because he can hit you with the basic move. He has basic moves. So you have to be really good basically first to add everything else. And then when he hits you with the left shoulder or right turn, you know, the playoffs, fresh rookie year, you know, you get a book of what type of moves every guy like. He go 40% over shoulder. Hakeem, it was nothing but on this side, he may go left, he may go right. And he was the only guy ever in the NBA that was my height and a center that you had to move your feet when he in front of you. Hakeem just didn't have the shake on the baseline. He would get you at the free throw line, give you a little stutter-step dribble, and you wouldn't know what to do as a big guy. You look in the guards, you know, for help. And Hakeem wasn't that big. That's all. When I saw him, I was like, okay, he's not that big. And to be, every time he's blocking shots, elbow over the rim or the jump shots, his game to me was just, it was just so versatile. Everything.
It's funny, you talk about elbows to the rim and that big. He said to me one time, he's like, Kenny, I'm really sorry. I'm like, why are you sorry? He said, because sometimes you set out practice and you say you have this thing called tendonitis. I'm like, yeah, you know. He said, I have it. It feels like a headache in your knee. This was 14 years into he had never had tendonitis. Right. He never knew what that was. So I'm like yeah, I said, Dream, I got migraines some days.
You know, as a guard, that was the first big man that I started asking tape for, because I wanted to see his footwork. I mean, one thing, Kenny, I could say, watching him in the layup line, him handling the basketball, he has spin moves. So I'm thinking, you know, big guys, where does he get this from? But then also talking to Jim Boylan, who was the kind of assistant coach was doing video for y'all, I was always asking him, he said the biggest thing about Hakeem was his counters. You know, everything a defensive had was his counters. So for me, trying to post up, I'm trying to learn all the counters. Unbelievable, phenomenal to try to pattern your footwork at Hakeem. I couldn't do it because this is a guy that the footwork, it seemed like it was just fluid. It was something off of feel versus everybody trying to break it down.
Look, I agree with everyone here on the panel. I would go with Hakeem Olajuwon out of the two.
What made Dream so special?
So, first of all, dude, everybody know who Hakeem Olajuwon is? You know, this guy's footwork was some of the most amazing footwork you will ever see. But his tenacity in the gym, I mean, like, you think he was mad during the game. He was even madder during practice if the guys wasn't practicing hard or he felt like we weren't putting forth the maximum effort. And that's what you want out of guys. You just want to come to practice and play hard, because if you go really, really hard in practice, sometimes it's easier in the game, because in practice, you don't have timeouts. In the game, you have timeouts, you have TV timeouts, but it goes to show you how great this guy was. You know, Hakeem Olajuwon is Muslim. And so during Ramadan, he's not allowed to drink or eat anything. So we had a noon game. And so you can't eat or drink anything until sundown. This guy still puts up 40 points, doesn't drink any water, doesn't have a meal before the game to get himself right. That lets you know how amazing it's good. And if you ask Michael Jordan what one guy he ever feared, it was Hakeem Olajuwon. He used to call us, I'm scared of the big African, because he's from Nigeria. That's what he used to say, because, you know, and the people out who are Chicago Bulls fans, I know this question comes up a lot. They always wonder, those 2 championships we won in Houston, would we have won them if Michael Jordan would have been playing? The answer to that question is yes, because they couldn't stop Olajuwon. We might not be able to stop Jordan, but they couldn't stop Olajuwon. We did have a guy that could kind of slow Jordan down in Vernon Maxwell. So before that question ever pops up, yes, we'd have won 2 championships if Jordan would have played.
The legacy of Hakeem Olajuwon, as celebrated by legends and peers alike, stands tall in the annals of NBA history. Olajuwon's mesmerizing footwork and unmatched versatility transcend eras. His impact on the game is enduring. But before we wrap things up, there's more hardwood wisdom to explore. Hit play on this next video to uncover what NBA legends and players truly think of the legendary Larry Bird. Stay tuned for more captivating stories and reflections from the hardwood heroes who have shaped the sport we love. Until the next one, keep it Mr. Sports.